The wind rolled low across the Wyoming plains, dragging dust like a whisper of warning, as Elijah Crow tightened his grip on the reins and felt the horse beneath him tense, the kind of tension that came before disaster, because this land, his land, had gone too quiet, and quiet was never a good sign, not after what the town had buried and tried to forget. The ranch house stood ahead, silhouetted against a bruised sunset, its windows dark though he'd left lanterns burning that morning, and as Elijah dismounted, his boot struck something half buried in the dirt. A silver badge, cracked clean through the center, Sheriff Dalton's badge, the man who'd sworn nothing was wrong, who'd told Elijah just yesterday, "Don't go near the ravine." And now the words echoed in his skull as the air grew heavy and a voice trembled from behind the barn, barely louder than the wind. A woman's voice, shaking, urgent, pleading, "Don't look there." Elijah froze, heart pounding, every instinct screaming that whatever waited beyond the barn would change him forever. But he had lived too long running from ghosts, so he stepped forward and the smell hit him first, iron and rot. And when he rounded the corner, the world seemed to tilt as he saw the ground torn open, the earth clawed apart as if something had been dragged from below. And standing at the edge was Mary Bell, her dress torn, eyes wide with terror, hands stained dark, staring not at him but at the pit behind her, where shapes lay twisted in shadow, too still, too wrong. And Elijah whispered her name, but she shook her head violently, tears carving clean lines through the dust on her face as she repeated the warning, "Please, don't look there." Yet his feet betrayed him and carried him closer, every step heavier than the last, until he stood at the edge and saw the truth the town had buried. A mass grave, freshly uncovered, bodies stacked like discarded secrets, men he recognized, ranch hands, travelers, even the preacher who'd vanished last winter, all bearing the same mark carved into bone, a symbol Elijah knew too well, because it had once been burned into his own past, back when he'd ridden with men who believed fear was currency and silence was survival. And as realization struck, his breath caught, because this wasn't just murder, it was a message. And before he could speak, hoofbeats thundered in the distance, lanterns flared to life beyond the trees, and Mary collapsed to her knees whispering, "They're coming back." And in that moment, Elijah understood the warning had never been about the pit at all. It was about what would happen to anyone who dared see it. And if you're feeling that chill right now, if your heart is racing with Elijah's, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because this story is only beginning, and what waits in the dark gets far worse. Night swallowed the ranch as riders closed in, their silhouettes cutting through lantern glow like specters of judgment, and Elijah moved on instinct, pulling Mary to her feet, dragging her toward the storm cellar as gunfire cracked the silence and bullets tore into wood where they'd stood moments before, the truth unraveling in his mind with every step, that the town he'd trusted was built on blood, that the men riding toward him were the same ones who'd sworn peace by day and dealt death by night, guardians of a secret older than the fences, older than the law. They barricaded the cellar door just as boots thundered above, voices barking orders, and Mary finally found breath enough to speak, confessing how she'd stumbled upon the ravine weeks ago, how Sheriff Dalton had begged her to forget, how the town council had decided witnesses were liabilities, not people. And Elijah felt the weight of every life he'd tried to leave behind settle on his shoulders, because the symbol carved into those bones was the mark of the hollow brand, a brotherhood that didn't forgive betrayal, and Elijah had once been one of them. The cellar door splintered under repeated blows, and as it gave way, Elijah stepped into the lantern light, rifle steady, voice calm, calling the men by name, watching recognition ripple through them like fear, because ghosts weren't supposed to return. And Elijah Crow had been declared dead a decade ago, buried under a false name in a shallow grave, and now the truth stood armed before them. He spoke of justice, of the graves they'd dug, of the lie that had poisoned the land, but fear is louder than reason. And when the first shot rang out, chaos followed, flames licking the night as the ranch burned, horses screaming, men falling, and by dawn the plains were littered with bodies and silence once more. But this time it was earned. Elijah stood among the ashes as Mary emerged, the sun revealing the ravine in full, undeniable light, a scar the town could no longer hide. And when the federal marshals arrived days later, summoned by letters Elijah had written long before riding home, the truth spilled across the territory like wildfire. Names recorded, crimes exposed, the hollow brand finally broken. Yet as the town rebuilt, Elijah did not stay, because some men are meant to reveal the truth, not live beside it. And as he rode away at sunrise, Mary watching from the porch, Elijah glanced once more at the land and murmured, "Never tell someone not to look, because what we refuse to see always comes back sharper, darker, and deadlier." And if this story held you until the final word, if you felt the dust, the fear, and the truth clawing its way into the light, subscribe to the channel now, because more untold Wild West stories are waiting, and the next one may be even more haunting than this.